You may have received one of these stars when you registered or shortly thereafter, and these are meant to go with you as kind of a reinforcement of the prayers that hopefully you've had a chance to offer in the prayer stations. And so I just want to make sure that you remember them and take them with you, and that they can be a source of inspiration for you in that regard. If I was really mean, this will just prove I'm not totally mean, I'd announce the mission challenge. But I don't even think the DSs are in here.
If they're not here, do they win?
If the DS isn't here, they forfeit. What did he say?
Wait.
All right. I am going to call on Joyce Ba. And when you get to be your age, it's okay for me to say how old you are, right?
I don't care. I'm as old as I am.
You're as old as you are. She's 91 years old. And came to annual conference. And she's a former Evangelical United Brethren. So, yeah, give her that too. So would you be in a spirit of prayer with her?
Gracious Heavenly Father, what a joy it is to be among this group of Christian Methodists. Just let all that you want them to take care of these few short hours to make our churches more inviting for the non-believers. I ask all of this in your most precious name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Just fans. All right, is the United Methodist Foundation in the room? I hate to have to give this mission challenge. Lonnie, do you have any update on the bishop's appeal? Oh, yeah. I know. All right, so Lonnie will give us an update on the bishop's appeal and see if the same district held their game.
Well,
Microphone
that could be
3.
a development. I do know the Rockford DS is trolling for some money. So if you see her, you may want to walk the other direction.
Lonnie!
You may want to rush to her with your check and cash. So not much change, Bishop. $73,339.23. Elgin is still ahead.
All right. Thank you so much. So are the district superintendents in the room? Yeah. All right. There's a couple of them I don't see, so I'm going to hold off on this mission challenge. Do you have any announcements, Paul? Okay. Then I'm calling on the United Methodist Foundation. Come on up. Well, at least they're in the room. So the United Methodist Foundation, they come to give their report. And in order to do that, we recess the annual conference, and then we'll resume after their report. So please welcome the Northern Illinois United Methodist Foundation. And the chair, George Gill, I think, will at least begin their annual meeting.
Good afternoon, United Methodist. It's great to be here with you. I want to bring you greetings from the board of the United Methodist Foundation, which is your foundation. We are a subsidiary of the conference, and you are the shareholders. The United Methodist mission, as I believe is up on the screen, is multiplying resources for ministry in the name of Jesus Christ by encouraging lifelong generosity with God's abundance. After excluding those investments set forth in both the Book of Discipline and our social principles, the foundation selects the best of those firms measured by environmental, social, and governance standards. To multiply the resources of the 400 clients of the foundation, we use these standards. This is all done within the framework of the foundation being a tax-exempt organization with fiduciary responsibilities and laws with which we have to comply. It's very nice to report to you that in 2017, the foundation had a very solid year. Assets at the end of the year in December were $63.5 million. This is an increase of nearly 14%. It obviously reflects a strong stock market, but it also includes net additions from individuals and churches in our conference. Since the end of the year, the foundation has made significant additional additions to the funds that are invested with us. A little information about how the funds have performed. We have three different portfolios: an aggressive portfolio, a moderate portfolio, and a conservative portfolio. The aggressive portfolio in 2017 returned just under 18%, the moderate portfolio about 13%, and the conservative portfolio about 9%. And these are things that we can celebrate. But of course, each year is new, and we deal with the markets and the conditions in the investment world as they come before us. I want to emphasize that the foundation has undertaken a number of steps to improve its overall capabilities and operations. In addition to an enhanced investment criteria, we have now been audited for 2 years by a firm that audits, in fact, the Northern Illinois Conference, Sikich LLP, which is an accounting firm that specializes in nonprofits and foundations, or has a group that does so. We have a new enterprise accounting system that really moves us years, if not decades, ahead of where we have been in the past. And this is all within the framework of seeking to serve you, the churches, and the members of these churches more effectively. It will enable us to make noteworthy progress, and we look forward to working with you as these opportunities present themselves. Now I'd like to turn to our board of directors, and we have a number of directors who are leaving us and another wonderful group of additions. But let me just run through them. David Foster is our vice chairman. David, where are you? Urgulin Camelin is our treasurer. Reverend James Easley is head of our nominations. Reverend Vicki Hadaway is the head of our grants program, which is important to all of you because that is part of what the church foundation does. Reverend Deb Purcell of personnel. Denny Hackett, marketing. Lynette Rice, audit. Marta Rodriguez, investments. Reverend Kelly Beard, Veronica Davenport, Sach Darwin, Sharon Eubanks Pope, Reverend Tom Rollinson, Jim Stoddard, Tom Sumner, Larry Thomas, and Arnold Ewing. And of course, the bishop and Lonnie Chapin, along with Chris Walters, who is our president of the foundation, are ex officio members of the board. We have departing directors that we want to especially recognize, and that's Urgulin, Vicki, Deb, and Tom. And I would appreciate it if you would give them a round of applause for their years of service. Now I'd like to turn the microphone over to Reverend Easley to talk about our nominating process.
I'm happy to bring to you a particularly strong slate of new board members. We have a slide for each of them. I'm not going to read you the whole slide, but I will lift up a name and a describing characteristic. First, I'm happy to nominate before you Reverend Robert Beekman, Senior Pastor of Maple Park and known to many of us as our Urban Ministry Coordinator of the conference. He is followed by Brad Colby. Brad is not able to be here today, but he's a lay member from First United Methodist Church of LaGrange and brings expertise in finance and also in benefits. Reverend Kimberly Davis is with us today. She is a deacon, chaplain with the Chicago Police Department, and we're very excited with all that she brings as well. George Groves is known to many of you as a leader with our United Methodist Men. You see him around with his red vest, and he's a lay member from Community United Methodist Church in Naperville. We also will place before you Debbie Grutzmacher. She's not able to be here today. She's a lay member of Faith United Methodist Church in Orland Park and has experience with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and as an independent consultant and with Merrill Lynch. One of our new clergy, Reverend Violet Jonaker, joins our board. She is, as of June 1st, pastor of Brook Road United Methodist Church in Rockford, but also has degrees in nonprofit management and policy work. So we're grateful for what she brings as well. And last but very much not least, Eugene Williams, lay member of South Shore United Methodist Church, retired chief of the Chicago Police Department, who wears many hats with us in the United Methodist Church. I'm very happy to place this slate of people before you. George, do I call for a vote or do you?
Under the United Methodist Foundation bylaws, these representatives have my approval, and we ask for your approval and their election. So the following 7 people are before you, the Northern Illinois Conference, for election to the Board of Directors, and your approval is requested. The bishop tells me that I should ask you, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Good, perfect answer. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Good afternoon, church. Oh, better than that. Good afternoon, church. It is great to see you all gathered here, sitting so comfortably at those tables after lunch. Do not fall asleep on me. To quote one of our esteemed colleagues earlier, this may sound a little bit like the Peanuts adults, wah, 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 wah. Please check that out of your imagination and just listen to a report about some of the great strides the foundation is making in our administration and our ministry to you as the church, the United Methodists of the Northern Illinois Conference. First, I want to update you on the new fully integrated accounting platform that we have implemented as of last July 1st of 2017. For many years, the foundation operated with the system that we had since 1992. And as a former database and software developer myself, I realized that we probably needed to update this thing that we had been using since 1982. So we did that last year, and it is cloud-based, and it integrates the GL with all the fund accounting, and it also gives you online access to your statements and the ability to export activity to Excel or PDFs or whatever format you would like. So if your church has an account or will have an account with the foundation, and you have not contacted me already to get your username and password to have access to your accounts, please do so. You should have received an email from me. We've been rolling this out for the past several months. If you have any questions about this, please contact me and I will get you hooked up with your new online system. Now I would like to talk more extensively about the changes we have made in investment methodology, which we have talked about for approximately the last 3 years here at Annual Conference. For nearly 3 years, the Foundation has researched, discussed, and reviewed many aspects of investing the Foundation's portfolios through impact-oriented strategies. After considerable analysis and deliberation, the Foundation decided at the December 2017 board meeting to adopt the impact methodology for the stock allocations of all 3 models that George talked about earlier. So what is impact investing? Well, I think we intuitively know this as Wesleyan Christians for the first 2 simple rules that we have. First is, come on, do no harm. So for many, many years, we have followed the ethical exclusion guidelines of Westpath, and we continue to do that, and that is screening out the stocks of the so-called sin industries. This is what you may call the clean hands approach. But now, starting at the beginning of this year, we now use environmental, social, and governance factors to rate companies against their peers in their sector, to screen in companies through an explicit focus on the high sustainability ratings, or what you might call ESG, environmental, social, and governance priorities. So impact investing is the approach most aligned with the investment ethics enumerated by the United Methodist Church in Resolution 4071 in the Book of Resolutions, and the updated language in 2016's discipline that you see a part here on the slide, that we should give careful consideration to environmental, social, and governance factors when making investment decisions and actively exercise their responsibility as owners of the companies in which they invest. This includes engaging with companies to create positive change and hold them accountable for their actions. So one result of applying these methods of impact investing is that the portfolios now have very limited exposure to the companies identified under the Carbon Underground 200 list, which is managed by Fossil Free Indexes LLC in New York City. This list identifies the top global 200 publicly owned coal, oil, and gas reserve owners ranked by the carbon emissions embedded in their reserves. The top 15 of these 200 companies account for about 52% of the 500 gigatons of carbon dioxide that they are planning to burn to create energy for the world. Now, the foundation's portfolios and the annual conference money that is invested through the foundation were never ever invested in those gross emitters, namely the coal companies in India and China that account for nearly half of the carbon dioxide that is captured in these fossil fuel reserves. So the handful of companies that are left off this Carbon Underground 200 screen in the portfolios in the energy industry are rated as the most responsible companies. Another result of impact investing is that the portfolios have a minimum carbon score that is at least 20% better than that of their underlying benchmark, not just companies in the energy industry. So every company has a carbon score rating, and so the portfolios as a whole have to rate at least 20% better than their underlying benchmark. Now, for churches and clients of the foundation that want to go the extra tweak of divesting fully from the Carbon 200 underground list, the foundation is in the process of creating portfolios that do divest completely from the CU 200. This option will be available for clients on January 1st of 2019, and we'll hear more about this when we read our joint statement. So the bottom line is that the foundation's investments, your investments as local churches and partners, are now even more deeply and closely aligned with the investment ethics of Resolution 4071 and the language and the discipline in 717. And this places our foundation in a small, select group of similar foundations. So over the long haul, in theory and according to a growing body of research and backtesting, these good companies tend to collectively outperform the bad or average companies because they are managed more sustainably over the long haul. So in the end, through impact investing, we are not sacrificing our time-tested principles of healthy investment management through broad asset allocation and diversification by economic sector and by passively managing to a benchmark. We also gain the confidence of knowing that your and our investment dollars are working the most good they can, the second simple rule, in the world according to our high ethical standards. Now at this time, I'd like to invite Stephanie Uhl from CCF&A and Melissa Bryce from Urban Village to come join me on stage as we will report to you the findings of our many conversations over the last year from Annual Conference of 2017. We have a statement that we would like to read to you jointly. First, Melissa Bryce will be reading, and then I will be reading, and then Stephanie.
Good afternoon. The Northern Illinois Conference Eco-Sustainability Task Force authored a resolution in 2017 seeking to exclude any company or entity whose core business activity involved the production of petroleum, natural gas, or coal from the investments of the NIC. The matter was referred to the authors of the divestment resolution, i.e. the task force, and to the United Methodist Foundation of the Northern Illinois Conference Incorporated for reconsideration in 2018. Since last year's annual conference, members of the task force met with the foundation board members and had several discussions. Both groups have made presentations to the NIC's Council on Finance and Administration. It is the position of the task force, in alignment with the worldwide fossil fuel divestment movement known as 350.org, that no NIC-held investments be made in companies appearing on the Carbon Underground 200, a list of the top global 200 publicly owned coal, oil, and gas reserve owners by the carbon emissions embedded in their reserves.
The foundation has for many years followed an investment strategy that adheres closely to 717 of the Book of Discipline of the United Methodist Church that calls upon investors to make a conscious effort to invest in institutions, companies, corporations, or funds that are socially responsible, consistent with the goals outlined in the social principles. The foundation has followed the so-called clean hands approach by screening out objectionable companies as recommended by 717. The UMC amended 717 at the 2016 General Conference to call on investors to give careful consideration to ESG factors when making investment decisions. So going beyond this clean hands approach, starting in 2018, as I mentioned, the foundation began using the services of Sustainalytics, a leading company research provider, to identify companies having high ESG ratings to screen in these good companies, in addition to screening out the bad companies. As a result, the foundation's portfolios are virtually free of the companies with the largest proven fossil fuel reserves.
However, some investors seek full CU 200 compliance with their investments. Therefore, starting January 1st, 2019, the Foundation will make portfolios available to the NIC and to local churches that are identical to the current ESG approach and that will add the CU 200 screen. The Foundation has chosen to invest some of its own funds in these new CU 200 compliant portfolios to monitor their performance in advance of offering them to clients, which is a sound fiduciary management practice. CCFA pledges to seriously consider each year increasing the allocation of the investments under its care to the Foundation's CU 200 compliant portfolios.
The task force strongly encourages CCFA, the Foundation, and all local churches to invest as much of their invested assets as they can in these new CU 200 compliant portfolios offered by the Foundation. According to 350.org, founded by United Methodist Bill McKibben, divesting from the CU 200 has been the default demand for fossil fuel divestment campaigners across the globe. CU 200's potential embedded emissions are now 608.8% more than their allocated carbon budget. This means these companies now claim business plan of burning 6 times more fossil fuels than can be burned for the world to have an 80% chance of limiting global temperature rise to 2 degrees Celsius, the limit set by the Paris Agreement.
All three groups, the task force, CCFA, and the Foundation, unite to declare that we must ultimately end the burning of fossil fuels, and we need, in the words of 350.org, to build 100% clean energy solutions that work for all. This is consonant with the clarion call of the investment ethics of Resolution 4071 of the UMC to seek to increase energy efficiency and mitigate and/or adapt to climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephanie and Melissa, and several board members, David Foster and Marta Rodriguez, who's the chair of the investment committee, for meeting with each other from these three sides of the equation. We had several conversations, met on Saturday mornings, and it's a good thing when we talk to each other and things get done. Amen? I'd like to highlight the grants ministry a little bit. Every year, the foundation has several accounts that are designated to fund grants throughout the conference. Most of the recipients are local churches. These are the recipients that received grants in January of 2018. In 2018, we granted about $25,500 to these 15 ministries. And I just want to raise up one of these grantees that you heard about yesterday, and that's the Rochelle United Methodist Church. They received a grant to help fund their ministry to reach out to the school that was right across their street. Do you remember this story? You see what can happen when we just talk to each other and you just put a sign in the window and you say, we love you and we're supporting you, and then they communicate back and then good things happen, and the next thing you know, you got 250 families from the school that are coming together for fun and activities. The foundation has some accounts that are designated for scholarships. For the 2017-18 school year, the foundation participated with the United Methodist Higher Education Foundation in Nashville and with GBHEM and the Lilly Endowment Grant and their Excellence in Clergy Leadership Scholarship Program. For 22 students, the foundation gave $40,000 in scholarships and participated in these matching programs that ultimately gave about $100,000 to these 22 students. If you don't know these two programs and you are going to seminary or college, there are scholarships available for you as a United Methodist. Please go to the foundation website or visit these websites to apply, because you can have your $1,000 from your local church matched up to $4,000 through Dollars for Scholars, or you could get even up to $12,500 from the Excellence in Clergy Leadership Scholarship. Now I want to highlight the Stewardship Summit. In August, for many years, we have had one Stewardship Summit where people have been gathering lately at Barrington United Methodist Church. This year we're going to mix it up a little bit, and we are going to do a somewhat abbreviated version in 2 different locations on 2 different Saturdays. One in Freeport at Freeport Trinity United Methodist Church on August 11th, and the other one on August 18th. These are Saturdays at the First UMC of LaGrange. Now, at this summit, we're going to be picking up where we left off last year with Molly Basquette. How many people were there? We had about 200 and some people last year at Barrington with Molly Basquette. And you remember how she talked about testimonies. And when you provided feedback to the foundation, the overwhelming response was the testimonies, the testimonies, the testimonies. When we tell our stories, that's what frees us up to do ministry and to encourage people. Generosity in churches flows from a culture of being in mission together and feeling that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. But often local church cultures are held back by distractions and a lack of hope. So come be inspired by Dr. Saul Abema to name those obstacles and overcome them so your church can move on to change and action. Now, I highly encourage you to please visit that URL on the slide, or just go to the foundation website and click on Stewardship, or click on Saul's face as the slide on the front page. And there's a link to about a 9-minute video that was shot by a church in Naperville that tells you Saul's story that was done for World Relief. So Saul came from war-torn Sudan and went on a biblical journey down into South Africa, where he was nearly deported back to Sudan, which surely would have meant his execution. Now, please watch this video. It is an incredible story. After fleeing war-torn Sudan, he went to the Baptist Convention College in Soweto and received his undergraduate degree, where he had really never, ever gone to school before as a child in Sudan. And then he came to the United States after receiving a presidential scholarship in 2005 to attend Northern Seminary when his wife was pregnant with their first child. At Northern, he completed both Masters of Divinity and Doctorate in Ministry degrees. And now Saul currently serves as the senior pastor of Lombard Bible Church, which is a member of the Christian and Missionary Alliance. He lives in Lombard with his family, and he loves to play soccer. Now, in addition to Saul's keynote that morning, we will have 2 other presenters in the style of the TED Talk format. We'll have one setting the tone for generosity through fun raising for youth ministry by Hattie Coher, Director of Youth Ministry at First UMC in LaGrange. and setting the tone through MBWA, Ministry by Walking Around, by our own Pastor B, Robert Beekman, setting the tone for generosity through outreach. Each presentation will be followed by significant time for Q&A and small group discussion. And with that, I want to say thank you, members of the annual conference. Thank you.
Thank you. And we thank you for the work that you do as the foundation for and with this annual conference, and we appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. You are dismissed. All right, then I call this Northern Illinois Annual Conference session back to order. And just so the people back there know, I'm going to skip the mind break for a little bit, and we might have it a little later. So I'm going to go forward with the Conference Council on Finance and Administration. And they will be coming forward to answer the questions that you have asked them and to put their budget to a vote. So if you would please make your way.
Thank you, Bishop. Good afternoon, conference. We always love your questions and thoughts. I love skimming through these, and some good, thoughtful people. I like the ones who put your names on here. It gives us people to invite, maybe, to join us in our work. So thank you for your signing comments. Work through these expediently here. First question, any possibility of developing a red church type of program to support congregations going green? For example, I'm going to provide a little interpretation here, providing loans for solar panel installations. This is a great idea. ComEd offers some programs for a lot of energy savings already. So if you're on ComEd, I know not all municipalities provide their utilities that way, but that's one place to work. And there's a couple churches that have already taken advantage of ComEd's programs. Eco-Sustainability Task Force has some good ideas too. We're not necessarily closed to this idea, but we would like to hear from more churches who might be interested in what this kind of loan type program might entail. So if that's something of interest to your church, reach out to us and let us know. Tammy Scott's going to share another one.
We had a question asking which church is charged with the pensionable part of the moving expenses, the church you're leaving or the church you are going to. The answer is the receiving church. Keep in mind it's 3% of $3,200, which is a max of $96, unless there's some extenuating circumstances where the moving allowance was greater. If you're moving to a 2-point charge, it will be billed the same way that other pension is and split between the 2-point charge in the same manner.
This was not just in a form of a question, but more a comment. It says, not even a mention of funding for youth ministry, quotations, our future. Our budget is put together in a form that we do not list everything that we do is grouped by, is put together by group, and as you see the second page which says programming that include that aspect. But let me tell you, historically, we have used out of our funding nearly $300,000 to support and invest in our youth. Programs such as Plumline, youth ministry training, our ethnic events such as Pembroke Institute, Hispanic Retreat. We have offered grants for emerging ministry for youth, summer program, urban strategy, Safe Haven, youth events during the school breaks, and BIM ministry. Not because it's not listed, we are not invested, they are just grouping. And in our process of budgeting, moving forward with our shepherding team, there will be more opportunities to see more going on in terms of the investment of our monies in program and ministry to empower our youth for ministry. And I will call Stephanie now.
We had a question of what stocks or companies does the conference invest in with the new fossil fuel initiatives? Is there a list to help individual members invest in these stocks or companies? The fossil fuel free fund has not actually yet been created. That goes live with the foundation's funds July 1st, and then for us in 2019. So I can't give you a list of those. If you are interested in getting more details, you should talk to Chris Walters at the foundation. The investments include hundreds of stocks, so to list only a few would not be prudent. So I would encourage you to talk to Chris Walters at the foundation to find out how you can get more information.
You know, when you're sitting way back here and you listen to people, it does sound wah, 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 wah when you're back on the stage. So I couldn't tell what you said, Stephanie. I'm sorry. All right, so there's a couple questions here regarding support for local churches. It's one of our line items on the budget. We have $242,000 allotted for that, that the cabinet discerns and allocates accordingly every year. First question, how long can a church stay on the list receiving funds? Our plans for evaluation on goals to no longer be receiving conference support received. So, because we allocate some of those funds to something called Presence, we know that that's probably going to be something longer term, because maybe it's the circumstances of the neighborhood, whatever it is, and we want a United Methodist presence there. Those are certain missional circumstances that we take into consideration. The redevelopment monies, in order to give support where they're working on a plan, that is something that then is like maybe for the first year there's this amount, the next year there's a little less, and the next year there's a little less, and then they're kind of weaned off that support. And then for the equitable compensation, that is always a yearly evaluation. Every year when we're making appointments, we are constantly asking questions around, you know, what's the church's budget, what's their sustainability of this budget, that sort of thing. And so it's a constant look at. And so through the consultation that we have with clergy and congregations, we are constantly evaluating that. So some of those instances, congregations might stay on longer, but certainly we don't want to have that be the case all the time. The second question, if those listed are funded through June, when and how will the annual conference be able to review and vote on these? So we work with $242,000. We will allocate up to $121 for 6 months. So what you might see on part of your budget is that, you know, these funds are allocated through June, right? You guys have studied this, haven't you? So we will most likely reallocate that if there's not an appointment change. If there's an appointment change, we might be reallocating a different amount, if any at all. And so we align our budgeting with the appointment year. But we go no more than $242,000 for that for the whole year, and that is what the conference votes on. It is what the cabinet then discerns and allocates. And now, Lonnie Chafin.
All right, annual conference. I have two questions. One's a three-part question. First one, document 600 is a sterile list of numbers. I think the author is critical of lists of numbers. I'm not sure why one would do that, but it is only in the CFA presentation that perspective, insight, and analysis is presented. and graphic slides. Is there a way CFA would be better served by including analysis inside and graphics in the document? I love graphs. You don't know what you've asked for. Yes, scatter graphs are a way to God. And so we will present some graphs. We'll post them online, the graphs we presented this time, and we'll try to do some more graphic representation in future budgets. And the next question is 3 parts by someone I would like to know who wrote this, because there's a position in CFA for you, a mission opportunity in CFA for you. What's included in contract services? Actual was $19,000 in 2017, and budget is $8,000 for 18 and 19. It was higher in that year because we had to do things related to the new quadrennium. So we had to reprogram the stats table, and we changed payroll providers. So there were some one-time fees in 2018. We think $8,000 is a reasonable number for 2019. Second question, bank fees increased from $18,638 to $19,774. Is the increase a result of the new procedures for local churches to submit payment to the NIC electronically? Decrease in postage but increase in bank fees. That's a good speculation there. There is a decrease in postage. We're saving nearly 1,000 pieces of mail a month by having online payment of apportionments and benefits. But the increase in bank fees is just an estimate for inflation. So we think they might go up by 3%. It's just anticipating some inflation there. And the third and final question is legal fees in 2017 were $16,293, and the budget for 2018 and 19 is $50,000. Is this a safety net? Do you have an attorney on retainer and only incur costs if we need legal assistance? We do not have an attorney on retainer. We only use these funds as needed for certain projects. We've spent up to $50,000 in the past, but we don't know what to anticipate for 2019. So we kind of keep this long-term average of $50,000 in the budget. And we've put some new procedures in so that people within the staff aren't contacting the attorney for every single question. We're trying to what we call horizontal training. So if somebody already knows the answer, we don't pay to get the answer a second time, is our goal, and we're doing better there. So we have saved some money in 2017.
Bishop, those are the questions that we have received on behalf of the Conference Council on Finance Administration. I move the 2019 budget for approval.
All right, the 2019 budget is properly before you from committee. Are there any questions or any other actions that you wish to take? Then I'm going to take it that you are ready to vote. All those in favor of approving the 2019 budget for the Northern Illinois Conference, please say yes. Yes. And opposed, no. And it carries. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to call on Reverend Larry Pickens to come and give us a final wrap-up on the Marcy-Newberry Association. And he's brought some friends. Excellent. If you want to give me that orange piece of paper, it doesn't need to be in your way. A clicker. I have a clicker just for you.
We can't start without Margaret Ann Williams. as she was coming up, she told me that I was in trouble. So there you have it. Let me, first of all, thank you all for this opportunity, Bishop Dick, for the opportunity to share with you the work of the Marcy Newberry Association Board of Directors and to give you a sense of what we've been doing for the last 5 years since Marcy Newberry Association closed its doors. This group of people and others have worked diligently for the purpose of helping us move forward in settling the affairs of Marcy Newberry Association. And we felt that this was a great opportunity for us to share those efforts and then also to say in an official way a goodbye to Marcy Newberry Association. So I want to name the board of directors. Sam Corey is apologetic that he could not be here today. He's working today as a state trooper, so he apologizes and wants you to know that he appreciates the work that you have done to help this process forward. Ann Ginther is the secretary of the board and is right there in the back. Why don't you stand up? And I know. There we go. And Irma Clark had to leave early, so she is not here with us. Jesse Ray Cunningham, all the way from Muscle Shoals, Alabama. It's good to see you. And Rita Smith. Rita L. Smith is here as well. And I am Larry Pickens, and I had the distinct honor of being the conservator. That's the person who kind of collects and makes certain that the money is accounted for. I want to also take the opportunity to pay tribute to some staff members, and particularly in doing so, I want to say this. I want to lift up the name of Margaret Ann Williams, who provided 42 years of strong leadership in the life of Marcy Newberry Association, serving as the church relations staff person. And Margaret Ann's motto was the joy of serving. Okay. Margaret, you want to stand?
Northern Illinois Annual Conference, good afternoon. It is truly a joy of what? All right. 62 years ago, I walked in the doors of a 3-story brick building on the corner of Maxwell Street and Newberry on the west side of Chicago. Anybody familiar with that area? There was a Polish sausage stand, Sadie's Polish Sausage, and they plugged their electricity into Newberry Center's electricity. So we got part of our budget from you buying those Polish sausages and hot dogs on Maxwell Street. It was just such a joy over the years, from 1956 in and out over the years now, with other positions traveling around the conference. It has truly been a joy of, and I'm so appreciative to the United Methodist women organizations out there who supported Marcy Newberry so much over the years. Wow. We could not have we could not have gotten along with you with our budget. You were there with us through thick and thin, and we did have some thick days, didn't we? But I want to thank all the individual donors. We had a group called the Metro Women's Auxiliary, and any folks that are on that out there, lift up your hands so we can see. There were quite a few Metro women who raised great funds over the year for the agencies, and the churches across all the districts were supported for Marcy Newberry Association. Larry, I know I said just a minute, but I just, you know, after 62 years, I guess I could talk, Bishop, at least 62 minutes. but in the end, thank you for your support of me and my ministry, but thank you most of all for your support of Marcy Newberry Association over the years. I love all of you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Thank you.
I'm just glad that I didn't have to get Martin Lee. I also want to lift up some other board members, or I'm sorry, staff members who were a part of the life of Marcy Newberry. And first of all, just to say a word about the origins of Marcy Newberry. Marcy Newberry started in 1883, and it completed its work in 2013. It was started in the back room of a saloon. That's an auspicious beginning. And one of the interesting things about the ministry of Marcy Newberry is that it engaged a predominantly Eastern European population that was moving into that West Side area. And maybe perhaps a little different from our own experiences with interfaith relationships, one of the activities in which the United Methodists engaged was, some would say, proselytizing the Jewish community that was a part of that community. I would like to say they were sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with their brothers and sisters. That's another way to put it. Elizabeth Eunice Smith Marcy came to Evanston as a professor, to serve as a professor at Northwestern University, and was a member of the First Church in Evanston. And she was the driving force behind the creation of Marcy Newberry Association. I also want to pay special tribute to Ben Kendrick. Ben Kendrick served as the the executive director of Marcy Newberry for 35 years, and he gave a very significant vision to the life of the organization. And we miss him. He died following the closure of the agency, but his memory goes on. I also want to mention leaders such as Drew Haynes, who served as the Director of Personnel and Contract Compliance person, also Al Sims, who was a Program Director, and Homer Lyons, who who served us ably through the evening basketball program at Marcy Newberry. Now, I want to say a few things, and Margaret picked up a lot, so I don't have to say or repeat what she has said, but Marcy Newberry enjoyed strong support in the life of this annual conference and in other circles such as the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services, which provided significant support. The state of Illinois was another institution that supported the work of Marcy Newberry, and of course the United Methodist Women. When it closed, it was making a very significant impact on the life of the West Side, and it was really making some profound changes in the life of that community. So we were saddened to see it close. It provided service in locations such as Lawndale, one location in Austin, 2 on the near West Side, and 3 of the sites offered early Head Start and preschool services, and 1 had services for older children. There was also an evening program for teens and adults that provided activities, as well as a number of programs for the senior citizens of the community. In winding down the affairs of Marcy Newberry Association, I have to tell you it's taken kind of a circuitous route because when we started our process, we were faced with over $1 million in debt. And in addition to that reality, we saw very little in terms of resources, tangible resources that would help pay off those debts. However, as we became more engaged in the process, we learned that there was a limited partnership relationship that Marcy Newberry had with the Residence Development Corporation, which developed Newberry Park Apartments, which is directly across from Marcy Newberry Association. And during that process, we discovered the interest that Marcy Newberry had. And with that interest in selling that interest, we were able to secure $380,000 in that sale. In addition to that, as we began to continue closing out the property at 1073 West Maxwell, it became apparent that many of us thought that the entire parcel was owned by the United Methodist Women in New York. But we decided to do a title search during the process and discovered that the property was actually divided into two lots. One was owned by the United Methodist Women in New York, and the other one was owned by Marcy Newberry Association. And at that point, we began conversations with the United Methodist Women about working together in order to facilitate the sale of the properties. That was very difficult because there were a lot of moving parts that went with this process. In addition to positioning ourselves in order to do the sale, there were some other things we had to tend to, which involved essentially recreating the financial records of the agency in order to file delinquent 990 forms to reinstate the not-for-profit status, which we did in order to shield ourselves from significant IRS ramifications. And somehow, some way, we convinced the IRS that it was in their best interest to allow us to reinstate the organization so that we could wind it down. And that was really, yes. That was one of the angels that we encountered in this process. The interest in that property that I mentioned also involved a situation with the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago had a reversionary interest in the deed, and it required that a transition center be built on that site for the purpose of providing for housing for teen mothers, which did indeed happen. There is a transitional living center, and it did happen. However, no one could find the certificate. The city didn't have it, we didn't have it, and we had to find a way to get around it. Well, as it stood, the city decided to waive the certificate requirement in order to allow the sale to go forward. And it was through the work of this board and the work of our attorneys, Neville Reed and Tom Baranowski, that we were able to get to this point. So I want to report to you that on May 30th, we closed on both properties, and the sale went forward with the United Methodist Women in New York taking $478,000 and Marcy Newberry taking $469,000. Now our task is to work with our attorneys in order to identify creditors and enable the settlement process to move forward. We foresee a proportional distribution to creditors as we negotiate with them, and it is also our hope and expectation that former staff members who left the organization being owed wages will also receive something from us. We're excited about what we have been able to do. We're excited about the way in which you supported that work, and we look forward to completely winding down this work within the next year. In fact, if you like, we'll come back next year and tell you how we completed our task. I want to leave these words with you from Theodore Roosevelt. There must be the keenest sense of duty, and with it must go the joy of living. There must be shame at the thought of shirking the hard work of the world. In Northern Illinois, as I land this plane, I want to say to you, we thank you for not shirking the hard work that has been placed before us. I want to ask now if the United Methodist Women's President would come now, Lois Moreland Dean, for our closing prayer.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we give thanks for Elizabeth Marcy, whose heart was touched by the needs of her immigrant sisters and their families. We give thanks for the handful of women from the Chicago North Shore who embraced her vision and moved into action addressing issues of poverty, education, and classism. We give thanks for your breath of life into these efforts, causing them to transcend changing communities and to meet their unique areas of need. We give thanks for the faithful witness and service of employees and staffs, most recently Ben Kendrick, Margaret Ann Williams, Gladys King Lucas, and Drew Haynes. For board members, United Methodist Women, the Metro Women Auxiliary, and the Northern Illinois Conference. For steering Marcy Newberry Association across uncharted waters and time. We give thanks with joy and sadness that after 130 years of service to the residents of Chicago's West Side, you've brought Marcy Newberry Association into the harbor of history to dock. May you bless her journey of service and sustain her history. To God be the glory. And the Northern Illinois Conference said, Amen.
Thank you, and please join me in thanking Larry Pickens for he's done the heavy lifting on closing this. All right, and our Director of Connectional Ministries, Reverend Arlene Christofferson, is coming forward for the program update.
Good afternoon. We've heard these two words again and again in these last 2 days, liminal and adaptive. I don't think I have to define those again, but I can tell you that we're living those in these days. And we're happy to spend a few moments with you talking about the program ministries of the conference, because last year when we passed the shepherding team model, we moved from having a program council into having a shepherding team as a strategic planning board or agency, and we sort of reshuffled the deck in what used to be called a program council and created 3 areas that encompass a lot of the ministries of our conference. Those areas are age-level ministries, redevelopment and development, and justice and mercy. These are new ways of thinking. Even though we had 3 sections or areas before, they've taken and grouped things according to commonalities in ministry, and even sort of cross disciplines, like congregational development, which is in some ways an entity unto itself. This is the adaptive work that we are about, and in our wisdom of doing this work in our resolution last year, we set up what turned out to be like a what were you thinking process of figuring out how leadership was defined to be the connectors between these areas and the shepherding team. The nominations committee worked well in wading through all of the brilliant ideas that we had to help us find these connectors, and one day we'll probably simplify that task, but I'm happy to introduce those connectors to you today. And they are each going to share with you just a word about the groups that fall under those areas, and then one ministry that we celebrate in each of those 3 areas, so you get a flavor for what's going on during this time. So those connectors are Meg Park in age-level ministries, Laura Wilson in development and redevelopment, and Mary Rawlinson in justice and mercy.
Good afternoon. So my name is Meg Park, and I'm serving First of Oak Park as a Christian education director, and I am also serving on annual conference shepherding team, and I'm the connector of age-level ministry. And I think my role in this program ministry is to create a dialogue loop between committees and areas of the age-level ministries, which include education work area, safe sanctuary, the Board of Higher Education and the campus ministries, council and older ministries, council and youth ministries, children's ministry, and the Board of Outdoor and Retreat ministries. And one thing that I like to highlight and celebrate of age-level ministry is the reemergence of the Youth Ministry Committee under the leadership of Christine Hayes. In April, we had a workshop titled Sustainable Children's and Youth Ministry by the Minister Architect Consulting Group. And as a follow-up to this event, the Council and Youth Ministry is planning on a year-long project with ministry's architect who will select 12 churches at a time, who will meet for 3 on-site trainings and receiving coaching calls between sessions to maximize our priority of equipping through ongoing targeted trainings for a sustainable approach to children's and youth ministry and beyond, and for healthy systems and for innovative change.
Hello, I am Laura Wilson Underwood. I am the Associate Pastor at First United Methodist in Morris, down on the Illinois River, and I am the representative for church development and revitalization and redevelopment. So these are the groups whose work is primarily about increasing the vitality of our congregations and our outreach. So the groups that I will be accountable to include congregational development and redevelopment, the Latino Hispanic Ministry Team, the Evangelism Work Area, the Spiritual Formation Work Area, the Worship Work Area, the Committee on Accessibility Ministries, and Strengthening the Black Church for the 21st Century. So I have been able to connect briefly with most of those chairs. I have missed a few, and if I missed you, you will be hearing from me sometime next week, hopefully, about what this relationship might look like, a little bit more about that. I'm extremely excited to get to be in this role where I get to learn about and from all of these groups. I haven't been around that long, so I have a lot of learning to do. So if you are part of these groups, please don't be shy about reaching out to me with questions or concerns or feedback or celebrations. And again, I'll be in touch soon with more about how to do that. So we wanted to take just a minute to celebrate the work of church revitalization, and especially the work of the Latino Hispanic ministry team.
Every Thursday afternoon, doors open at Amor de Dios United Methodist Church in Chicago's Little Village neighborhood, welcoming guests to the year-round food pantry, even on winter's coldest days.
We are serving over 200 families every Thursday. Basically everything, fruit and vegetables and meat.
Sí, va bien surtida la despensa. Gracias.
She says that this food pantry helped them to their family to feed them.
Pastor Romero Rodriguez, who was once homeless following the breakup of his marriage, is serving the church, which first welcomed him when he was feeling hopeless. He opened the food pantry 10 years ago to give back to the community.
I thank God for bringing me here because I changed my life.
Romero, an electrician by day, received his training to become a lay missioner through the Northern Illinois Conference Academy for Faith Community Development, a 2-year program for Hispanic, Latino, and other laypersons of diverse backgrounds to grow in spiritual leadership for their local churches in the Wesleyan tradition.
The communion as well as the baptism for our denomination.
También algo único de lo que es el sacramento.
Some of them never even went to school, but this is one way they can come and learn and becoming a bold leaders.
More than half of the 22 Hispanic Latino churches in the conference are led by Academy graduates. Working to make a difference, too, over 3 years, the Conference Hispanic Latino Ministry Committee worked alongside leaders from the National Hispanic Plan to broaden its mission to reach more people.
Our vision is we believe in a multicultural church family. Deborah, can you lead us in prayer?
Reverend Fabiola Grande Mayer, pastor of a multicultural church in Rockford, Illinois, chairs the committee.
We are working in 3 areas as a committee: youth development, laity formation, and parish leaders. In those 3 areas, we are working and trying to find ways to strengthen each area.
If they're going to a United Methodist.
Committee member and local pastor Uziel Hernandez, who leads 3 congregations, including an Hispanic New Faith community and one of the earliest Hispanic churches in the conference, is moving towards his elder orders.
New groups of people, new communities are ways for us to also get to know God, for also get to know the other, and for also to get to know new ideas and new ways, new venues for ministry.
The Conference Hispanic Latino Committee's outreach has included an immigration forum, annual conference dinners, and Hispanic Heritage Month celebrations. They're exploring new ways to be in ministry to reach new people. From drawing people into worship to providing an essential service like a food pantry run by a lay missioner, the Conference Hispanic Latino Ministries offer hope and share God's love.
That was awesome. My name is Mary Rawlinson. I'm a deacon serving in extension ministry and appointment beyond the local church alongside people who are poor and suffering from mental health and substance abuse issues. I'm humbled to represent Justice and Mercy Ministries on your shepherding team. Acts of justice and mercy are at the heart of our faith, and they're how we live out our love of God and our love of neighbor in the world. The committees that guide us in our work and who I will be accountable to are the Board of Church and Society, Board of Global Ministries, the Commission on Christian Unity and Interreligious Relations, the Commission on Religion and Race, Commission on the Status and Role of Women, Commission on Ethnic Local Church Concerns, Committee on Native American Ministries, and the Committee on Restorative and Transformative Justice. I've reached out to these committee chairs and hope to be starting a conversation soon about their hopes and dreams and concerns for the church and for this conference. And I encourage you, if you're on those committees or you're not on the committee or you have people in your community who are passionate about justice and mercy, to reach out to me and become part of this conversation as we learn from the shepherding team and provide feedback to them and become part of this work that we are all doing. One of the amazing highlights of our justice ministries this year was a bunch of folks from Northern Illinois Conference got on a bus and rode through the night to Washington, D.C. for the Act to End Racism rally organized by the National Council of Churches in D.C. on the 50th anniversary of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s death. They bore witness to the nation that racism is a sin that can and must be stopped. So if there's anyone here who is on that bus trip, could you stand or wave and just let us applaud you, because that was an amazing work of justice. And now I'd like to introduce another one of our ministry teams, the Eco-Sustainability Task Force.
Grace and peace be unto you. Dick Alton, Euclid Avenue United Methodist Church. I'm chair of our Green Action Team and co-chair with Reverend Nancy Redford of the Conference Eco-Sustainability Task Force. Our task force was begun 4 years ago under the conference leadership of Reverend Michael Mann and the support of Reverend Dr. Marty Scott and, of course, Bishop Dick. We have focused on shepherding congregations towards caring for God's creation through developing a green certification process and holding district green fairs where we share local accomplishments and make available resources. In the last 2 years, green fairs were hosted at Grace Logan Square, West Chicago First, Chicago Hartzell Memorial, and Oak Park, Euclid Avenue. Presently, we have 4 foci for the coming year: helping form green teams, energy audits, waste reduction through eliminating styrofoam, and reducing investments in fossil fuels.
Hello, Northern Illinois. I'm Nancy Blade Rutherford and pastor at First United Methodist in West Chicago. Dick and I want to extend a big thank you to Bishop Sally Dick for her guidance. We were like that boat out in the middle of the ocean. We didn't have any kind of connection, and we were kind of tethered to you, and that was really helpful. You kept an eye on our group as we began to look at some things. At one point, we wanted to rewrite your book. Did you know that? The book that you wrote with Sarah Erdman, we were going to write it for youth curriculum, and that didn't work because we realized it was good for both adults and youth, and we still encourage you to read that book and use it in your local congregation. We looked at some justice issues, and Melissa Bryce brought that divestment issue to the CFNA last year, along with the foundation, and that's really worked out well. We also worked heavily on educating our churches, as Dick explained, with the green fairs, and many of you have been to those. Have you been to one of our green fairs? If you have, raise your hand. Okay, a lot of you have. There's a lot more work we can do. We're going to keep having those. But we really made the best advance this past January when Dick and I met with Bishop Sally, and she gave us some kind of a map of going forward, some names and some deadlines that we needed to connect our task force to the larger annual conference structure, and we will go through the Board of Church and Society and connect with the Justice Ministries on the shepherding team. And she also invited us to invite our local churches in more practical ways to move forward. And then after we met with her, the Holy Spirit really started to work on us. And as we kept meeting, more people started joining our task force. So if you're a member of the task force, I'd like to introduce you. Would you stand up? Okay, not seeing many of them. Okay, so Reverend Harriet Cross is here. Reverend Michael Mann. Phyllis Tholen, who you met on the screen, she gave one of our 50th anniversary talks. Victoria Beal, are you here? Beth Galbraith, she's in the back there. Melissa Bryce, who you saw on stage, and Bill Kale, who is out at our mission display booth. Many of you met him. He's actually a friend of the annual conference. He's our Unitarian Universalist person from Geneva, Illinois. But we're glad to have him on the board, or on the task force. We are laity, clergy, older adult, young adult, ecumenical, balanced in gender and life experience. And this was not planned. This was the work of the Holy Spirit, and we just have this conference-wide commitment to being green. You can still join our group because we are not conference connected yet, since we're still a task force. Come on board now, and then you won't have to go through the whole nominating and election process that you may have to at one day. But Bishop Dick, I want to thank you for your prayers and your advice. Annual conference members, I want to thank you for your participation and your patience. I also want to thank you for passing our resolution 700.01. We are pleased to announce that we will be networking through our new Facebook site, the Eco-Sustainability Network. Find us on Facebook, send us your stories and your pictures, like us, share us, and just be a part of that vision that we're creating there for that network. We also have a website that's going to be information for your green teams. Now, I know a lot of you don't have green teams yet. This is the time to get on board because this is a growing movement. We have a map of where we're going, and we all want to get there together. So we invite you to go home to your local church, tell them about our eco-sustainability, send us your pictures, work the vision of eco-sustainability in your local church. Meanwhile, the task force will meet and make connections with the Board of Church and Society and with the Rainbow Covenant program. We'll continue to host green fairs, and at the 2019 annual conference, we expect to be certifying local churches as official green churches of the Northern Illinois Conference. We hope that'll be your church because we are growing green together.
The story of the Eco-Sustainability Task Force is a story of adaptation. These were people who came together with common interest and energy instead of being called to sit on a committee with disjointed interests. And this is the wave of our future as we adapt, and now they take that second step into becoming connected to the wider structure of the church so they have a home while they still carry out their passion. There's one other quick story I want to share with you of ways in which we are adapting. You heard in the last couple days about several of the grant programs that go on in the Northern Illinois Conference, the UN Foundation Grant Program, which does a great job of seeding churches with ideas, the Kigi Fund, and the PAC grants, which focus on rural ministries and rural churches. There have been a couple grants out there in our orbit. in the past that sort of fell by the wayside or just lost structure over the years. And we've resurrected and created a team that's working to coordinate 3 grants, a Congregational Development Grant, Justice Ministries Grant, and Creative Ministries Grant. They will be a one-track process, 3 grant option, same calendar of work with 3 different groups that make some determinations about receiving awards. We believe that grants are a great way to encourage the church to sort of pull over into the rocks a little bit and try something out to see if it's going to work and give you a chance to navigate those uncharted waters. And so watch through the Reporter and the e-news this summer for links to the grant application that will come out soon. I would like to just thank Meg, Mary, and Laura for coming into the raft with me. When one of them says, I don't know what I'm doing, I say, neither do I, but we will figure it out together. And so that is the strength of having people in the raft with you, and I'm grateful that we're on this adventure with one another. Thank you.
Thank you. That gives just a little bit of what the programming of our annual conference is doing, and in some of the new structuring that we've put into place. It's still evolving. I'm going to go ahead and call on Katie Voigt, and we're going to work with the constitutional amendment.
So, if you would turn to the constitutional amendment that you downloaded to get ready. We will review some things before we actually get to it. So last year we voted on 5 constitutional amendments at annual conference. As a denomination, we ratified amendments 3, 4, and 5. If you want more information on those, I encourage you to go to umc.org. We're not going to rehash all of that. The first 2 amendments failed to reach the required 2/3 margin of approval of the membership of the annual conferences. And in the days following the announcement of that, the Secretary of the General Conference announced that a mistake was made in the distribution of the amendments. The wording to Amendment 1 was in error, which makes the votes that all of us took last year on Amendment 1 also invalid. So that brings us to this year. Once we were notified of this error, the corrected wording was distributed to the annual conferences, and it was put up on the website for all of you to have access to as well. You will see, we will get to, but we will put that wording on the screens before you here today when we move to the vote. As a reminder, there are some specifics about who is eligible to vote on a constitutional amendment. Those specifics were also available on the web and are, I think we have slides of those specifics as well. So if you are a clergy member in full connection, a lay member to annual conference, or a diaconal minister.
Not that one. What? Not that one. It was the wrong slide.
Oh, okay, sorry. Or a diaconal minister or active deaconess, you are eligible to vote. So those are the specifics of who is eligible to vote for the constitutional amendments. The way this vote will happen, we are asking that one person from each table count the people at your table who are eligible to vote, and then proceed to the north wall where there are members from the volunteer usher staff, and pick up just the number of ballots you need for your table, and bring them back to your table. So go ahead and do that now. Oh. They're going to pick them up.
Do you have the slide back there that shows the people who can or cannot vote? And also cue up the slide of the actual amendment.
I saw those in the weeks leading up. So
yeah, I think they have it. These folks are the lucky folks. They get to stand up and walk. The rest of you could stand up in place. You can stand up where you are in place.
A body break.
Yeah, it's a body break. We're doing our own stretch.
The constitutional amendment. It doesn't have a number, it's the constitutional amendment. It was a separate download.
We'll show it in a minute if they get it up there. I hope they do. I know they got,
and we have Oh, I actually have one. Thank you, though.
Okay, again, just to see who is eligible to vote on the proposed constitutional amendments. Clergy members, elders, and deacons in full connection. Lay members of annual conference. Diaconal ministers and active deaconesses. Those are the only people who are eligible to vote.
So a couple words of process again. Because these are amendments for the denomination, we are unable to make amendments here at our annual conference level. We are, however, able to have some discussion or ask questions for clarification. And also, because these are a denominational level process, we cannot announce the results of our voting here. Our votes will be counted and sent in to be tallied with all of the results from all of the other annual conferences. And once the bishops certify the results from all of the annual conferences together, they will announce the results at that time.
All right. Why don't you read it out loud with me? As the Holy Scripture reveals, both men and women are made in the image of God, and therefore men and women are of equal value in the eyes of God. The United Methodist Church acknowledges the long history of discrimination against women and girls. The United Methodist Church shall confront and seek to eliminate discrimination against women and girls, whether in organizations or in individuals, in every facet of its life and in society at large. The United Methodist Church shall work collaboratively with others to address concerns that threaten women's and girls' equality and well-being. So, That's what you are voting on. This is the constitutional amendment. That means it's in the Constitution and not just in the body of the Book of Discipline. All right, so are there questions? Yes, microphone 1, I suppose.
Bishop Jonathan Crail, Clergy First DeKalb. I'm just asking if you would tell us how much the constitutional amendment failed by in its first attempt.
It was very, yeah, it was less than 1%. It was like it was less than 0.5%.
I think 100-some votes worldwide.
Yeah, I get the two of them mixed up in terms of their actual votes, but both of them were fairly close.
So every vote counts.
Every vote counts. Was that your point, Jonathan? Very good. It was lost on me at first. Any other questions?
But please only vote legally.
Are you raising your hand back here, microphone 1? And then, Christian, you can go to...
He's at 2.
Microphone 2. Oh, I see it. Microphone 1.
Lois Nemeth from Olympia Fields, United Methodist Church. Lay leader, confirmation on the placement of this Constitution to be in the Book of Discipline, which will be in 2020. If that's correct, this will be placed on page 26 between Article 5 and Article 6. Can you confirm?
I can confirm that. Oh, Chris.
Christian Kuhn, clergy from Urban Village Church, Chicago Southern District. Bishop, I'm just curious, does this work like the Electoral College in that does each conference get a certain number of votes, or do all of the votes from everywhere come together and then they take the percentage of those total votes?
It's an aggregate. So it's all of the votes.
Okay, thank you.
So is that another speech about every vote counts? Catching on, you guys. All right. Yes.
Lonnie Chafin, Conference Treasurer. I didn't prepare a speech for this because it seems obvious to me, but I think it needs to be said. Women and girls are persecuted in parts of the world, and it is righteous for God's church to protect them and challenge the world to accommodate them and that they might live a full life. Women and girls throughout our country are trafficked or beaten or abused, and is it not our job to find wholeness in life and purpose for their success and thriving? And they are equal to men. Women and men and all genders are equal. Let us affirm that in our foundational documents. I encourage you, even if there's a quibble you may have with a comma or a phrase, I encourage you, please, it would be radical in some places. What might seem obvious to us is radical in some places in which we are the church. And this is a message that you can send to places beyond your knowledge that says God has a hope for women everywhere. Please vote yes.
Thank you. Okay. Hold your applause. Any other? I'm not seeing any. Then please mark your ballots, and Katie, tell them about how they're picking them up.
So if those same people who went and got them from the ushers over on the north wall would then collect them from your tables and deliver them back to the north wall, that would be fabulous.
And while they're doing that, would you show the Mind video back there?
Thank you.
maybe.
This health break is brought to you by the Abundant Health Initiative of the United Methodist Church.
Thanks.
Get up, get ready. It's time for a health break. Let's unite to boost our physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. Grind your mind with this 2-minute creativity crunch. Let's flex those mental muscles with this first exercise. Word patterns. Starting from the top, say aloud the color of each box as fast as you can. Go! Excellent! Now keep up that pace and say aloud the color of each word. Not the word themselves, but the color in which they appear. Ready? Go! Tricky, huh? This exercise improves concentration and attention switching abilities by establishing new connections between the different hemispheres of your brain. Let's keep that mental sweat going with another mental exercise. This one's called Name Game. Name 2 objects that start with each letter of your first name. For example, if your name is Sam, you'll say 6 objects. You might say sailboat and star for the first letter, then repeat the process for the remaining letters. You can even switch it up by naming words in different categories, like foods or cities. Ready? Go! Nice job! Congratulations! You've invested in your mental health today. Your fit and flexible mind is ready to face the day with energy and creativity.
All right, has everybody had a chance to take your tables, ballots? Then the balloting is closed. All right, we're going to go on and do some legislation.
Okay, as a warm-up, my friends, I invite you to turn your attention to the nominations slate that Nancy Pendergrass called our attention to yesterday, that was available as a download on the website. Bishop, on behalf of the Nominations Committee, I move adoption of the slate of nominations.
All right, the slate of nominations is properly before you. It's been brought to your attention, and it is before you. Any question? Then all those who would approve, please say yes. Yes. And oppose, no. And it carries.
Great job on your warm-up, friends. With that, I encourage you to turn to page 13 of the legislative download, document 70202, incorporation of the ACST and DST into the standing rules of the annual conference. Page 13 of the legislative download, incorporation of the ACST and DST into the standing rules of the annual conference. Bishop, on behalf of Jack Ryder and Liz Gracie and Arlene Christopherson, Chris Winkler, multiple authors of this, I move adoption of the resolution.
All right. The document 70201, which is
70202. I'm sorry. It's at the bottom of the page.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I looked at the top of the page. 70202 is properly before you. Microphone 2.
Bishop, I'm George Groves, United Methodist Men Conference President.
And I'm Lois Moreland Dean, United Methodist Women Conference President.
And we would like to propose an amendment.
All right.
Do you want the amendment first or the reason?
The amendment.
The amendment first is what we would like to add on page 16, line 47, add the conference United Methodist Men President or designate. And under that, we would also like to add conference United Methodist Women President or designate. This is to add the United Methodist Men and the United Methodist Women to the shepherding teams. Additionally, we would like to add them to the districts. On page 21, line 12, add the district United Methodist Men President or designate. And on line 21, or page 21, line 13, district United Methodist Women President or designate. These have been emailed to Jack Ryder and...
All right, so that...
Oh, thank you.
That's your amendment. And is there a second? All right. Do you want to speak to it?
I would like to speak to it.
Okay.
If folks would look on page 14, lines 26 and 27, this was the nurture ministry team which had replaced the historical, effectively, leadership teams within the conference. And it included the presidents of the United Methodist Men and the United Methodist Women. When the shepherding team came about for the past 2 years, it was told to us anyway that it was just an organizational team putting things together, but now that we want to incorporate it into the, let's say, the standing rules of the conference, and it's going to start doing some of the major ministry rather than the organization. The United Methodist Men and the United Methodist Women would like to be at the table because everything on those things are on the list of what those folks are doing. We're doing ourselves, and we help the conference, and the conference can help us a little bit.
Okay, if that's one speech for. Lois, do you want to speak to it?
Yes, I do. The United Methodist Women and the United Methodist Men uphold the United Methodist Church in our mission to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. United Methodist Women and United Methodist Men presidents represents hundreds of women and men within the Northern Illinois Conference and beyond its boundaries. United Methodist Women and United Methodist Men bring their own resources, and they have, in my case, women who are experienced and ready to move forward with ministry in new and innovative ways. United Methodist Women and United Methodist Men sometimes are the only connection that local churches have when they are not involved outside of the local church.
Okay, I have two speeches for. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak?
Bishop, I'd like to point out that your message on divergent and convergent, we are convergent and divergent.
Okay, thank you. Microphone 2, Mark.
Mark Harkness, clergy, Walnut. I'm actually going to make a speech in opposition to the amendment.
Okay.
When we started having this discussion a couple of years ago about a shepherding team and who should be on it, I remember sitting here and not just frustrated trying to keep up with all of them in the secretarial pool, but we were amending it and amending it and amending it. Why don't we just change the amendment to make it a committee of the whole? This team has been discerned And I think we should leave it as it is, and if it needs to be changed in the future, then we do that when it needs to be.
All right. Thank you. That's speech against. In the light, I didn't see Catherine back here.
Hi, I'm Catherine Insera. I'm a newly consecrated deaconess. I was in Columbus. I think there were a lot of women in the room who were at the Power of Bold United Methodist Assembly. Anybody there? Raise your hand. So I was consecrated there. My home church is Park Ridge. I'm in ministry at Trinity United Methodist in Wilmette. And I'm just going to speak for, because of the message of the power of bold. And I can't speak for United Methodist men, but I am a woman in ministry, love, service, and justice. And the United Methodist women in this conference are so strong and robust, and they are tireless in their nurturing and coaching and their shepherding. So I will present a speech for the United Methodist women and men to be included in this shepherding effort and process as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. I have 3 speeches for, so all I can take are 2 speeches against, and I'll go to microphone 2.
Hi, I'm Brittany Isaac, elder at Urban Village Church in Edgewater, and I also was part of the leadership team that spent lots of hours crafting and praying and discerning, and I might have gone a little more gray. I am a product of campus ministry. I'm a product of outdoor retreat camps. I'm a product of of youth ministry. I'm a church planter. I have parents that are both United Methodist men and United Methodist women. All of these are valuable, awesome ministries, but this body, the shepherding team, is not a representative body. It is a strategic planning team, and we can't. Where do you cut off? Where do you cut it off? Right? Like it sort of like my colleague said, we might end up with a team of 100 people, and you can't do strategic planning. As Liz said last night, we discerned and realized if we ended up with a huge body of people on this team, then what was going to happen is there would be an executive team that ended up making all the decisions anyway, and we didn't want that. We wanted a group of people that were connected to these nurturing ministries, but not as a representative body. So that is against.
Okay, and I see microphone 4. Are you going to speak against? Because that's all I can take is 1 more against.
Yes, against.
Okay.
My name is Mary Zajac. I'm pastor at St. Charles Baker Memorial Church, and I want to speak against this amendment pretty much on the same grounds that Brittany did, except her gray hair didn't get quite as gray as mine in this process, apparently. So we did debate this very lengthy. We had more in, more out, and really did come to the point where 20 is really on the edge of being able to do strategic work. In addition, this body is only about 6 months old at this point. We really haven't given them a chance to gel enough. They're just getting started. And so my plea would be, let them operate for a year. Let's start to see what strategic information we can get out of them, how well already women and men are represented, and United Methodist women and men, just in the members that get chosen. These are roughly half lay, half clergy organizations. So there's a very good chance, in fact, that there are UMM and UMW members on each one of these teams already. In addition, if you go back and look at the original legislation, there were 34 groups that we boiled down to 3 positions on this team. And so there are 32 others who might also be interested in getting a seat at the table. So.
All right. Then I have 3 speeches for, 3 speeches against for this amendment. The amendment only is in front of you, and you've been able to see the language right there, which we appreciate. It makes it easier. So we're ready to vote. All those who would approve the amendment to include United Methodist Women and United Methodist Men on the shepherding teams, both conference and district, please raise your hand. All right, those who would not approve. And it does not prevail. So now the whole 702.02, changing the standing rules, is properly before you. All right, are you ready to vote? Since I haven't given you any breaks, I'm not really sure if people are going to microphones. Okay, microphone 2.
I have a question. Marlene Stratton, Elmhurst First. In the category that has age level ministries, church development and revitalization, justice, mercy ministries, is there any intention on either the part of nominations or the shepherding teams themselves to rotate the 3 specific areas that those representatives come from? Right now we have a youth ministries, we have a restorative and transformative justice, and I don't know what Laura Wilson Underwood represents. Her name isn't on the nominating list. But is there an intent to intentionally change which of the many different areas can be chosen from that section?
All right, would somebody like to answer this question for us? Liz? Microphone 3.
So elsewhere in the legislation, it talks about how those 3 designates are going to be chosen. And what is to happen is that each of those groups, I think within each of those 3 areas, there are about 8 different groups, and they're going to come together. In fact, that's what they did last summer, is they came together with the Director of Connectional Ministries, and then they nominated people, 3 people each, I think, and they were chosen from that. So there's certainly an opportunity to rotate. The notion, again, is not to have direct representation, but to have somebody on the shepherding team that has experience and is passionate about those ministry areas to keep the shepherding team mindful of them.
All right, thank you. All right, are you ready? All those who would approve the whole document, 702.02, the standing rules, please raise your hand. Thank you. And those who would not, please raise yours. All right, thank you. And they are approved.
Okay, next document. I invite you to turn to document 700.04. I believe for most of you this document is blue, which might be helpful at this point as we're kind of running out of, workable brain cells. So find the blue sheet of paper. Document 700.04, Affirmation of Theological Diversity and the One Church Model. So on behalf of, they added an author, so let me get this right, Edward Eddy, Kelly Beard, Lonnie Chafin, Lisa Cruz Stafford, and Chris Winkler, Bishop, I move adoption of the resolution.
All right, the resolution is properly before you. Affirmation of Theological Diversity and the One Church Model. All right, microphone, where are you going to go? 3?
Hi, I'm Jack Ryder. I'm a member of First United Methodist Church of LaGrange in Chicago Southern District, and I'm a member of the
2019 special conference delegation. I would move to refer this document to that delegation for their consideration.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Do you want to speak to it?
Since we don't have any real hard documents in hand, and we won't until somewhere around July 8th, it just seems to make sense for us to take this, consider it prayerfully, as we will hundreds or thousands of other documents that we'll be seeing in the next 8 months, and determine what to do at that point. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Microphone 1.
Hi, Kelly Beard, elder at Holy Covenant. I would ask that we not refer this to committee. I think that there are representatives who are our delegates who do not agree with this legislation, and I'd actually like to have this body engaged so that it can be instructive to our delegates at the General Conference. So I would say we do not refer. Thank you.
Okay, microphone 2.
Yeah, Roger Curlis, member of Wesley Church Aurora, member of the Credentials Committee, and having served on 3 General Conference delegations. I speak in favor of referral, particularly if the delegation has not had a chance to completely examine all of the documents and everything that's yet to come. I think they need the freedom to be able to explore and to fully discuss together as a delegation and come to where their minds are. Our belief tells us that the Spirit helps our delegations discern. And having been through the process with 3 delegations, I can affirm that. And I want to give the delegation the freedom to discern rather than to be instructive to them before all of the information is before them.
Okay. Microphone 3, and then 4 after that. I'm sorry, I might have missed you.
Lonnie Chafin, Conference Treasurer. I'd like to speak against referral. This is not a binding resolution. We cannot bind our delegation. I think the conference should be speaking and the delegation should be listening. So I don't find this effort to kind of mute the conference around something that affects all of us well intended. I think it's what the document tries to do is set out some values. It doesn't say specifically each aspect of the one church plan, which is not knowable to us, but it says, please resist schism. Please find a way for us all to live with grace with each other. Let's find a way for all voices, those who ask for LGBT inclusion and those who won't integrate LGBT inclusion in their ministry. Let's find a way for all of us to continue to be a church in relationship together. So I think it's a statement of values and that it's important for us as a conference to speak. I don't know why we would stay quiet at this point. So I would encourage us to not refer.
Okay. No applause. This is a great discussion. Microphone 4.
Bishop Britt Cox, clergy from Church of the Three Crosses. I rise to speak for referral. We will be given the opportunity to speak with our delegates in our cross-conference conversations that we've been encouraged to attend. And it's my understanding that those conversations will happen following the release of the actual legislation. So that'll give us the opportunity to speak in more of a conversational dialogue with our delegates, as well with people across our conference. Thank you.
Okay. Microphone 3. I have 3 speeches for referral and 2 against, so all I can have is 1 against. Is that you?
That's me.
All right.
Kevin Carlson, Gary Church, Wheaton, Aurora District, brothers and sisters in Christ. I'm not in favor of endorsing this proposal.
Now, we're speaking of referral.
Referral?
Only referring it back to the delegation. That's all that's before us, whether you want to refer it. Yeah, quick think if you can,
yeah.
you know.
I am for referral.
Okay, then I can't take your message. Sorry, but I think you got your point in. All right, microphone 1.
Don Guest, paragraph 346.1, serving in Northern California. Bishop, my question is to you. There has been confusion both in the general press and the church press regarding the plan that the Council of Bishops has recommended. Could you give us some clarification about the One Church plan and whether or not the Council of Bishops have indeed recommended it?
So I'll tell you, as I said Monday morning in the Episcopal address, that the Council of Bishops recommended the One Church plan. I spent quite a bit of time talking about the One Church plan. You know, I'll simply say it's the bigger tent where nobody is coerced to do something they don't want to do, like same-gender marriages, and the boards of ordained ministry decide whether they're going to ordain LGBTQ people. I did spend quite some time doing that, so in a nutshell, that's what it is, just to refresh everybody's mind. Thank you. All right, I can still take one speech against referral. Microphone 3.
Chris Winkler, clergy, serving Barrington United Methodist Church. Not much different than what my brother Lonnie said, except that I think the real possibility is that when we get to General Conference, we're going to have to make a choice between plans that lead to schism and plans that have chance for unity. And so for all of us to hear this conference's hope for, direction for, it's advisory, it's not binding, on what we think about those, I think the discussion is worthwhile.
Okay, so now I have 3 speeches for referral, 3 speeches against referral, and...
I have a point of inquiry.
Yes, but where are you?
I'm at number 4.
Okay.
Brian Gilbert, Princeton United Methodist Church and the Calb District. If this is referred, is there any other time before February as one body that we will be able to express to our delegation what our hopes are for them at that General Conference?
To my knowledge, there wouldn't be any, just the 6 conversations throughout the annual conference this fall.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Now remember, this is the vote on whether to refer the document to the delegation or not. Okay? Point? Okay. Oh, okay. If you vote to refer it, it goes to the delegation and we're done with it for now. If you vote not to refer it, then the whole document is back in front of us and you'll vote it up or down. I'm sorry, I should have thought to say that. Thank you. All right, this is the referral vote. All who would refer, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those who would not refer, please raise your hand. Okay, and it is not referred. Now the whole document is in front of you. I don't have any speeches for and I don't have any speeches against.
But you've got people moving to microphone.
Microphone 3. Sure. 3? Oh, I see. There's a standoff. I don't know who came first, but I'll let the other one go after him. Microphone 3.
These are short microphones, but I have to lower it just a little bit more. My name is Richard Swanson. I'm lay leader at Epworth United Methodist Church in Chicago. How many of you talked to your mother on Mother's Day or your children talk to you on Mother's Day by phone or in person, or fathers on Father's Day and your children? How many? Show of hands. I did too. This Mother's Day, I talked to my mother for the first time in 36 years. And my father. They belong to St. Paul's United Methodist Church in Melbourne, Florida, where I also was a teenager and was called to the ministry, to Candler School of Theology, and was told, after I was there for a while, that the Florida Conference would have no place for me, no appointment for me as a United Methodist minister. And I heard, I do this, I've been 3 times now, and I always go to the retirement ceremony because the people retiring have had ministries of many years, and they're about my age. And so I hear things that always touch me. One of them, and I can't remember, I can't distinguish who they were, but there was one who talked about a balcony, the cloud of witnesses. And I thought about my cloud of witnesses because I've had this great, belated, delayed reunion with my mother and father over the phone. I've talked to them a couple of times now, and I'll probably see them. God's grace, after so long a time of being in the wilderness, in uncharted waters, on the seas, God's grace broke through. Not really much through the church or with the church, but in spite of the church, which told my parents, and they're still 50 years later members of the same church where I grew up. Our church told my parents, starting in 1972, that their son was incompatible with Christian teaching. And therefore, their prospective minister's son was definitely incompatible with Christian teaching.
I hate to break you
I'm
off.
sorry.
But could you tell me if this is a speech for or against?
It is.
I will tell you. I will
tell you. I will tell you. It is a speech, and what do you think? It's a speech against. It's a speech against. And I know
I didn't.
I've been silent for a long time. I won't go on forever. I'm sorry. A speech against this, and I'll tell you why. I'll get back to the balcony. Thank you, Bishop, for being patient with me.
You have gone over your 3 minutes, so I'm going to give you another minute.
Thank you very much, Bishop. I wasn't aware that I had done that, and I'm sorry. The cloud of witnesses, I'll just read these names. Matthew Shepard, Brandon Tina, Phyllis Kinhart, Tim Moody, Lyle Loader, Finest Crutchfield. These witnesses can no longer speak, but I can speak, and I cannot allow more young people in Africa or Mississippi or Georgia or Alabama to be ripped into this meat grinder any longer. It's time to make a change that liberates the whole church and brings the love of Jesus and grace to all of us. Thank you for your time and for patience.
Thank you. Scott, microphone 3.
Bishop, this is also a speech against the document and the underlying One Church plan, at least as we understand it. I know we have more to hear, but I have 3 concerns with it. The first one's organizational. Not only during the 50 years of United Methodism, but going all the way back to the Wesleys, we've been a connectional church. The One Church plan seems to take a dramatic step toward local church autonomy. And if we're going that direction, then I would expect we will also empower local churches to accept or reject appointments of pastors, empower local churches to determine if they will pay apportionments, how much they will pay, what categories they will pay, and also whether or not the trust clause finally resides in their deeds. That is not the way forward. My second concern has to do with reality. The call to unity being sounded from our Council of Bishops is hollow. The council itself is clearly divided. The One Church plan attempts to preserve the institution of United Methodism, but it also very clearly keeps the authority and power of the current Council of Bishops in place, and very clearly keeps the current financial plan of apportionments flowing from all congregations, no matter their convictions. Money and power are preserved, but that is not the way forward. And my final concern has to do with the cost of this call to institutional loyalty. If the cost of unity is backing away from a commitment to justice for all, then the cost is clearly too high. And if the cost of unity is a renunciation of the faith once delivered to the saints and held by the overwhelming majority of Christ followers everywhere, then the cost of that renunciation, the price of severing ourselves from the global community of believers, is simply too much. We all have prior commitments to Christ and to the global community of believers which go before and they supersede our commitment to United Methodism. The cost of being a United Methodist cannot be a violation of anybody's conscience. That is not the way forward. The One Church plan shackles us to chronic conflict. The plan leads to division, no matter what you want to call it and how long it would take. Why not respect one another enough? Why not love one another enough? Why not set the mission loose, make it free enough by blessing each other on our separate paths and leaving the results in the hands of God? Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have two speeches against back here at microphone 4.
Thank you. Thank you, Bishop. Reverend M. Barclay, provisional deacon, member at Broadway in Chicago, and thanks be to God, a proud, self-avowed practicing homosexual. And I have a speech against this. My siblings in Christ, my speech against this petition is only a speech for waiting, for lingering in the unknown, for not jumping into unnecessary endorsement of a plan we haven't even seen yet in its fullness. As a queer clergy person exiled from my home in a Southern Annual Conference, I know deeply and personally what the One Church plan could codify in the lives of those who are most vulnerable to our discriminatory policies, which is queer clergy and candidates in unwelcoming conferences. Yesterday, a profound moment of personal privilege was shared on the floor of this annual conference. A moment was held to remember what has been at stake in this annual conference ordination process and what will be left at stake for years to come in the name of contextualization. I am not opposed to compromise, and I am not interested in perfection. Like every other queer person in this church, I make compromises every day just to be here. Until we bring about the kingdom of God, compromises will be necessary. But we need more time to talk about who and what it is we are compromising. Let us not take unnecessary steps today. We have listening sessions ahead for the purposes of continuing this conversation. Post, knowing exactly who this plan will make most vulnerable. Let's lean into those sessions together. This conversation still needs nuance. There are questions to be wrestled with more deeply. There are queer stories from conservative conferences that need to be considered, and there are promises that need to be made to those in other conferences before this can be passed with any integrity. Despite the narratives you may hear, for many of this, it is not about politics, this is about lives. I hear about the lives and mental health and careers and relationships at stake every day in this church. If you have the luxury of not holding on to that in your decision making, please listen to those of us who don't. Can we linger in the uncharted waters? Let us not anchor to a shore only because it is the nearest one. There may be others when the fog clears. Will you linger with me and all of us who have to hold our place in this church lightly every day of our lives, and do not pass this premature petition? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have 3 speeches against. All I can take is a speech for. Microphone 2.
Lisa Cruz Safford, Rockford District Clergy. My understanding is that the mandate from General Conference was for the Commission on the Way Forward to see if there was a way to be unified, or at least to stay together, that was the mission and the purpose for the Commission on the Way Forward, was for how can we stay unified, not how can we separate. And so with that said, I would ask this annual conference to make a statement on where we are. Are we as a conference seeking unity, or are we as a conference seeking to be split apart? We heard this morning from Reverend Alfred Day as he was giving his presentation, and we heard how Walter Cronkite said in regards to the Vietnam War, we are mired in a stalemate. And it feels like our denomination is in that same place, mired in a stalemate. And my hope is that at least this one church plan moves us a little bit off that place of stalemate, that it gives us some context and room for each other to be at the table. It may be a way for us to get past being stuck for over 40-some years. Thank you.
Okay, I can take 2 speeches for microphone 1.
Hi again, Kelly Beard, elder serving at Holy Covenant United Methodist Church, which is one of the first reconciling congregations in the country.
Lean into the mic.
You lean me into the mic. All right, but great. Sorry. Kelly Beard, elder serving at Holy Covenant in Chicago, one of the first reconciling congregations in the country. And I am for this petition because I have friends who live in Mississippi and Texas, folks who identify as queer, LGBTQIA, and they have told me, you have such privilege being in Northern Illinois, and to use our voice to move this forward, I've heard directly from them saying, please God, pass something to give us hope, to be in solidarity with those who are still going to be living in Texas and Mississippi and in Africa and the Philippines. And I think that I've also heard that, well, if we stay united, then there will be no reason to continue to advocate for full inclusion. And I would say that the work of racial equality and justice, as well as disability awareness, women in ministry, a whole host of people who have not necessarily fit into a limited box of who we expect to be in ministry, those voices still continue to matter, not just in the church, but in the world. So I actually see the work of that continuing. And the reason that I think it's important for this statement to come on behalf of our conference is because a small percentage of people don't actually represent our body. And so I would really like this body to say where we are and to make a commitment to stand together regardless of our view on this position or on many other positions on which we don't agree. And so I really ask for you to pray and to vote the right thing by voting this up. Thank you.
Okay, and I don't know which one of you came to the microphone first. You're both standing in line. Elizabeth, okay, they tell me Elizabeth was at microphone 2. And then this will be the last speech 4.
Okay. My name is Elizabeth Bowes Deacon in the church serving beyond the local church. I would ask this body to vote this in, similar for a lot of things that my colleague Kelly said. I do believe that the Northern Illinois Conference is a diverse conference. And I think that we've waded into those waters, and it's been messy, it's been hard, it has had costs, But I don't know that we can see into the future what cost may or may not be there. But I know that it's made me richer to struggle with my brothers and sisters throughout that diversity. They challenged me to grow in ways as a Christian that I would never have in any other conference. And so I think that we could be a witness and we can lead our brothers and sisters in all the other conferences because we embody this already. And we've waded into the waters of diversity, we've struggled with one another, we continue to struggle with one another, and we're moving into what it means now just to be an inclusive church and an equitable church. We're not there yet. We just have the tip of the iceberg of diversity. And so I say we continue, we wade deeper into that water, and we struggle with one another, and we don't leave anybody behind. But this would be the first step, and it would send a message to other conferences, and we could speak to that reality in our own conference. So I ask you to vote yes on this.
All right, we have 3 speeches for, 3 speeches against. That's all we can take. Are you ready to vote? You're voting the whole document up or down at this point. Those who would approve the document, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those who would not, please raise your hand. And it prevails. I would just like to say, I thought that was a really good conversation. And like every other conversation in where we are as a church these days, it can sometimes be hard. But I really, really appreciated the spirit in which you engaged with one another and shared your hearts and minds in regards to this very important time in the life of our church. And I hope that the conversation here actually does even enrich the district conversations. So thank you very much for the way in which you have engaged this afternoon. Please give yourself a hand.
With that, Bishop, we have completed our legislation. And so I know we were going to ask Luis Reyes to move to microphone 4 while Elka makes her way up for the next piece of...
Bishop?
Yes.
Luis Felipe Reyes, First United Methodist Church of Lombard. At this time, I wanted to invite my fellow Puerto Ricans to stand where you are. Si eres boricua o de sangre boricua, por favor, párate conmigo. I just say, I invite my brothers and sisters from the island of Puerto Rico to stand with me wherever they are. Good to see you all. Thank you, Bishop, for this moment of privilege. I stand on the shoulders of many Puerto Ricans who have served the Northern Illinois Conference throughout many years. And I am honored to call Northern Illinois Conference my home for the last 25 years. But I am a native of the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. Last year, about a year ago, the island suffered the most devastating storm in our history. Winds over 200 miles entered in the southeast part of the island and cross the island and destroy my beautiful homeland. And even though I am here, we still have families and friends who experience and continue to experience the aftermath. Not so long ago, United Methodist made me even prouder to be a United Methodist when UMCOR designated over $16 million to assist the Methodist Church of Puerto Rico in their rebuild. And I thank you for that. On behalf of my sibling in the island, thank you for doing that. And thank you, Northern Illinois Conference, for showing how much you care for us. Since that moment, many of you have come to me, how is your family? How can we help? And thank you for stepping in, not only with your pockets, emptying your pockets and giving, but with your prayers and your care. The new hurricane season has begun, and the island is not ready, not even for a storm of 15 miles. The island is experiencing a moment of hopelessness. Even though we Puerto Ricans are very resilient, my concern before you this afternoon is that we are losing hope. So I ask you, Bishop, to bring my homeland into a moment of prayer, so my brothers and sisters in the island do not feel that they are alone, that God hears the prayers of the faithful, and we continue to help. And I wanted to invite you all to open your possibility to go into a voluntary mission and help rebuild the beautiful island. It is open for business. Let us go and spend time and rebuild. Bishop, could you please pause for a moment and bring my hometown, my home, my island, where my family is still living into a moment of prayer.
Yes, of course, and I think our hearts have been breaking for Puerto Rico and just the added insult throughout the year in terms of the delay in helping to restore it. Let us be in a spirit of prayer. Dear God, we thank you so much for the people of Puerto Rico and the ways in which they have endured that which is unimaginable for us. And so we pray that you will be with the people who are still on Puerto Rico as they anticipate this hurricane season just about upon them. We would just boldly pray that they would be spared from more hurricanes this hurricane season. Help them to be able to restore their island. And we pray that you will be with all of those who are working towards that end. We pray that the U.S. government will make right with them and do their part in restoration. We thank you for all the United Methodists and other faith communities that have worked throughout this year to try to alleviate the suffering on the island of Puerto Rico. Thank you for all the people who are represented in this room and all of the many relationships they have. We pray that you will be with those Puerto Ricans who have come to the United States and have been forced to stay or continue to stay for whatever reason and yet are separated from their families. We ask that you will bless them and ask your special protection on them. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you.
Thank you, Bishop.
All right, so the Northern Illinois Board of Global Ministries wants to thank everyone for being so supportive of this year's Mission Challenge. The good news is that the trailer was filled and all the districts met or exceeded their goals. There's a special thank you for this volunteer support from Baker, United Methodist Church, the youth group from Downers Grove Faith, and Redeemer of Calvary. So give them a little love too. There are fantastic stories about the church and mission that you cannot avoid when you work there at the trailer, and so if you want to be a part of that, be sure and be in touch with them for next year. There's special recognition given to 2 districts for going well beyond their original goals. In addition to meeting their goals, the Chicago Southern District brought 30 complete cleaning kits, and those aren't cheap, 30 complete cleaning kits, and made a cash donation of almost $600 for the Mission Challenge. So let's... The winner is, however, the DeKalb District. which exceeded all expectation by 50% for one goal, 100% for a second goal, and 200% for a third goal, and cash contributions. Just for the curious, their final numbers are 900 air fresheners, 4,300 sponges, and 25,250 clothespins. A special shout out to two small churches, Harmon and Topeka, that for the second consecutive year donated 25% of the district's original goal, even though one of the churches only has 8 members. There you go. And where is this district superintendent of the DeKalb district? Where is she? Come on up. There is what happened to my fan? There is a plaque for you. So the Bishop's Appeal, giving abundantly, generosity overflowing. Chicago Northwestern got it in 2013, DeKalb District 2014, Aurora District 2015, and Rockford District 2016, and now it goes back to the DeKalb District. Here's the box that you can transport it in.
Wow. Bishop, I want to take a few moments now to thank the Pheasant Run Resort. Pheasant Run has been home for our annual conference sessions for many years, but everything that has a beginning is bound to come to an end. This relationship was a good one, and just like any relationship, it had some great moments and its challenges. Our contract with Pheasant Run was till 2018. So our 2019 annual conference session will be held in a different place.
Excuse me, Elka? Did you say we're going somewhere else?
Next year, we will meet in a different place.
Well, I heard what you said, but why? We've always come to Pheasant Run for annual conference.
No, Terry. I know for some, this is the only place they know where annual conference sessions have been. But we've been coming here for not staff. I'm not looking for staff answers. 179, according to Bishop. For only 15 years. And Terry, every year you are on my case. Every year you and I have numerous conversations about making this space, this experience accessible for all persons. And now you are saying that you do not want to change anything?
Oh, no, I'm just concerned thinking how hard this change will be for everyone to handle.
Oh, yeah, change is hard. I know that. It's hard for me too, even when I am the one making the change. I just hope that I won't automatically start driving towards St. Charles in June next year. But Terry, will you help me make this announcement, or will you make it difficult for me to make this announcement?
That's tempting. But I'm really excited about where we're going. I'm glad to go. I got to visit, and I want everyone to know that the facility we're going to is extremely accessible for everyone. There's over 50 handicapped parking places that are permanent. And the restrooms, well, when the bishop can't find you, we know where you'll be because the restrooms are really nice and easy to get into. And the hotel rooms are delightful, and those that are designed for people with mobility or vision or hearing challenges have all the modern bells and whistles, alarms, sinks you can drive your wheelchair onto, roll-in showers, and even a doorbell that will flash. And they even have safety rooms on each of the floors that you can go to if there's a fire, so you don't have to, like, hope somebody knows you're there. And I can go on and on. I'm excited, but I'm concerned a little bit about the distance. It might be a little farther for some of our conference members.
Right. I'm glad you brought it up. Actually, the facility is off of a highway, off of a freeway. And so as far as distance, so I liked that idea that it was just very close to the highway. But as far as distance, I did do some research. So here's what I found out. Galena is about 140 miles from this facility. Guess how far it is from the new facility? I know you wouldn't know. I'll tell you, 140. 140 from here and Galena. Same distance for Roscoe, same for Wilmington. Now, I said I looked at some distances, not all churches. So I also understand that for some, distance may not equate to the same amount of time for your commute. So I do understand that. And I do understand that for some, the commute may change, but not too significantly, just a little bit,
Well, being next to the highway was really helpful for me, and I like that they have a shuttle that runs a 3-mile radius. So for people who do not participate in the various meals we offer during the annual conference, they can take the shuttle and go out, and there's over 500 restaurants within that radius. No.
And we also found many hotels that cost under $100 per night within 1 mile of this facility. For persons who prefer to stay on site, we learned that rooms will cost about $20 more per night than what we paid this year at Pheasant Run.
And we will be able to offer child care on site.
Now she's on board.
That sounds like it'll be helpful to people. And the facility is newer and cleaner.
And there are many, many, many more things that we can talk about. But Terry, you think we should say the name of the place that we're
No. Let's show them the video.
All right, show them the video, Megan. There are flyers at the usher table on your way out. Feel free to take a flyer if you want to. We will also be posting the website on our conference electronic news, so feel free to look through that. But
we'll see you in Schaumburg next year.
Woo! All right, so now it's time to thank everybody for the wonderful work that everybody has done to make this possible. Members of the Northern Illinois Annual Conference, your cooperation, your participation, and many times your patience helps us tremendously. Together this year, we have celebrated the generosity of this annual conference. We have agreed to take care of our earth. We have made commitments to call for an end to gun violence. We have done more than sometimes meets the eye. But none of that would have happened the way it did without your help. So thank you. Clap for yourselves. But there are a lot of people who work together to make this annual conference happen. Some faces we see regularly, but many work behind the scene, and before we even get here, they are here. So we're grateful to them. We're grateful to the staff of Pheasant Run, especially those who prepared, cleaned, cooked, and served us in any way. We're grateful for the Baker Memorial and the Geneva United Methodist Churches for their collaboration in offering childcare this year. We're grateful to Deborah Potts, who's not here now, but who gave us sign interpretation during our worship services. Now, if we can just hold our applause till the end, so I have a list of people to name. So if you hear your name, either stand where you are if you are in the house, or if you were one of those persons who were helping us from the office or as volunteers, just come and stand as close to this railing, the ramp, as you can. So let us thank all of our conference staff and regional office administrators, and Marie, Mo, David, Nicole, Marva, Megan, Laura, Ria, Jeff, Betsy, Debbie, Natasha, and all others I failed to name, but conference staff and regional office administrators. Our conference lay leaders, Jesse Cunningham, Elisa Gates, Mark Manzi, our Committee on Accessibility Ministries, and our accessibility coordinators, Kathy Wellman, Violet Joniker, and Susan Harkness. People on our AV, people that are working on the AV service. This was a new service we used this year, and I just have to add, hold your applause till everybody has been named. I just have to tell you, random people came, and Bishop is a witness of that, telling us they have never experienced such smooth audiovisual service. Yes, thank you. Keck Mowry for live streaming from back there, Ryan Sutton and the Committee on Credentials. If you're hearing your name, stand or come to the ramp. Melissa Myers and all the people who put the worship services together or participated in them. Gary Rand and the band, the Many, and all those who provided music in any way. Daniel Diss, who not only led our early morning communion service, but also served as our parliamentarian this year. Scott Himmel, who coordinated worship ushers. Shar, who led the plenary ushers, and all the volunteer ushers who helped them. I can't even pretend to name all the ushers. Our bishop, Sally Dick, our conference secretary, Reverend Deborah Tinsley Taylor, but also all her volunteer secretaries, and Paul Lee, who filled in for Debbie. Reverend Arlene Christofferson, Director of Connectional Ministries, all the district superintendents, Katie Voigt, our chair of daily proceedings and vice chair of this committee, and her support team, and all the members of the annual conference committee. If you are here, I invite us to stand in this moment. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You all can sit down, but I still have one more thank you to say. Let's see, do I see her? Lisa McGowan. You have faithfully planned this annual conference session for us. Come on up. For how many years? 15 years for us to have our conference here, but how many years Lisa's been with us? 8. At least 7? 8. 8 years. For 8 years. And would you believe that she actually knows many of your names? She's not United Methodist. But she knows our lingo. She knows our acronyms. She has been good to us, but this was her last year with us. Lisa, we wish you only the best as you continue to serve other clients who need you. Thank you. Thank you. And please do not forget evaluations. They will be sent to you electronically within a week. Dates for next year, you saw them on the slide, right? June 2nd through 4th, 2019 at the Renaissance in Schaumburg. Until then, people of God, let us keep our faith in God, who called us and who promised to be with us. Whether we navigate uncharted waters of a new appointment, question oppression in any form, or challenge injustices that we see around us. God be with us till we meet again.
Thank you, Elka. Thank you for all you do to keep us Thank you. All right, then I do just want to make a report that Debbie Tinsley Taylor is at home. She's resting, and just keep her in your prayers. Let her know that you're thinking about her. So let us stand for closing prayer. So Monday, I guess that was yesterday, I asked you to share what your hope for the church is. And we put together the most common ones that were given. And so as I read these, I pray that this will be your hope, and that hope takes action, and that once again we will not become resigned to the way things are, have been, but that we will continue to work for hope. My hope for the church is love. Feel love, share love, show love. My hope for the church is unity, inclusion, welcoming, equality. Some even said, my hope is the one church plan. My hope for the church is diversity. My hope for the church is acceptance of each other. Whatever your hope is, go and live it. Be the hope for the world. Amen. See you next year.